Too much talking. Welcome everyone to the next episode of Purposely Podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to Tobi Skovron. Skovron. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Perfect.
Welcome, Tobi.
Thanks, Emily. How are you?
I'm really good. It looks like you're in one of your beautiful offices. Tobi is from Creative Cubes, which some of you may have heard about if you're a Melbourneite. But before we hear all about that, I guess the first question I like to ask my guests is, if you're at a dinner party or a barbecue, I mean, if you're allowed to do any of those things right now, because we're not allowed to do that, and someone said, "Oh, g'day, Tobi, what do you do?" How do you explain what you do? Because you've got a really interesting background. I've been doing a bit of stalking about you.
Okay.
So how do you explain it?
I think the high level is I'm an entrepreneur, right? And so I think that encompasses a lot of the things that I do today and plan to do in the future. So born and raised this way, really started to embrace who I really was at the age of 23. And it's taken me on a pretty wild high and low adventure. So I'm an entrepreneur today. I actually serve as the CEO of Creative Cubes, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. But my roots are entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur, having these eureka moments that just spark this like incredible fire and total explosions in my brain of ideas and creativity. And I'm not the type of person that likes to die wondering, so I just have a crack.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So before we delve into what Creative Cubes is and what you're doing now, let's hear the story behind the story. So where did it all begin? Like, go back as far as you want, give us all the dirt. How did Tobi end up where he is today? Because I know that you lived in America for a little bit, and I'm curious. Like, let's hear about your childhood. I love hearing about people's childhoods because they obviously shape who we are as a person. So where did you grow up and what was it like being a child for you?
Yeah, so born and raised in Sydney, Bondi, junior lifesaver, North Bondi, North End, basketball junkie, and grew up in an environment where my mom is my biggest cheerleader. And unfortunately, my dad passed at the age of 16 for me. So he fell sick when I was 14 and passed away when I was 16.
Wow.
And that really sort of like just completely changed my childhood. And sometimes I think about, what would it be like if that was different? But on the other side of the fence, I think a lot about, if that pivotal moment didn't happen, I definitely wouldn't be on your podcast or your vlog today. So my dad was an entrepreneur. I grew up with two sisters and my mom. And my dad, for my dad's 40th birthday, my mom made this cake. And unlike the cakes that we can get today where you could pretty much 3D print everything and anything, a very talented artist was actually able to draw my dad and a speech bubble on the icing of this cake.
Wow.
And this icing, this speech bubble basically said, I did it my way.
Yeah.
And my mom took a photo of that, and my bedroom was opposite my bedroom in the hallway at home was the bathroom. And my mom, just to the right, had this photo of this cake that she created and taken a photo and sort of hung it on the wall. Yeah. And so as a kid, every time I went to the bathroom and back, every time I left my bedroom to go left or right down the hallway, there was this cake. It said, I did it my way. And I think in hindsight, that was sort of subliminal messaging that just kind of seeped right in.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2003, I met this beautiful girl. She happens to be my wife today. We have two beautiful kids and some animals. And I moved from Sydney to Melbourne to be with Simone, or Sim. And I kind of taking a step back. Before I left Sydney, I studied podiatry at University of Western Sydney, which was a 2-hour one-way railway trip or train ride from where I lived in Bondi Beach to Western Sydney, Campbelltown, Macarthur area. And I hated it. I hated every day. I studied podiatry because I love shoes. And I thought there might be a way for me to become this doctor where I could kind of be, referred to and sort of keep up with my friends who are lawyers, surgeons, dentists, so on and so forth. And so I needed to become a doctor, but because I love shoes, I thought maybe I'll become a doctor in podiatry.
Wow.
And then I'll design and develop.
I cannot imagine you as a podiatrist. That is so weird. Because I've watched a lot of your stuff and I've read a lot about you, and that just absolutely blows me away. So it sounds like you kind of did what society thought you should do in order to be successful, but you very quickly realized that that's bullshit. And so,
well, it took me 3 years to realize that that's bullshit. Actually,
yeah.
I studied 3 years. 3 years of hell. And I went to my mom and I said, Ma, I'm not happy. I'm not a happy person. This doesn't make me happy. I feel like I'm just trying to keep up with everyone and kind of become something that I'm really not. And I'm sorry if that's going to embarrass you. And I'm sorry if I'm not going to become the doctor. And she turned to me, she's like, I don't know where you got that idea. Firstly, I knew that wasn't for you, but I needed you to work it out for yourself. And secondly, you make me proud anyway, so just go do your thing.
Good on you, Mum.
Yeah, I know, right? And so at that time, Sim had come from Melbourne to Sydney for the summer. We kind of had a summer fling that's lasted close to 20 years, just through mutual friends.
Yeah.
And the summer fling has lasted, nearly 20 years.
Wow.
And the adventure between, that date and where we're at today has been wild. But so she came to Sydney, and then I kind of fell in love with her instantly. I fell in love with her months before I even knew her. I'd met her, but didn't really know her. She was actually being a camp counselor in North Carolina for a 6-month stint. And so we decided it's just a summer fling. She's going to go off. I'm going to do my thing. And it was great. And she landed back in Melbourne and said, look, I don't know what's going on, but I don't want this to end. So I said, great, because neither do I. I expressed this to my mom. My mom gave me all her frequent fly points, put me on a plane to Los Angeles, where after 6 months, Sim had met me from North Carolina. She came to LA, and we basically traveled for 6 months. And then it was we'd gone from a long distance relationship, Sydney, Melbourne, to a really long distance relationship, Sydney, North Carolina. And now we're 24/7 for 6 months. Now what? And she's like, come to Melbourne, let me finish my degree. And then we'll do 6 months in Melbourne, 6 months in Sydney, and then work out what's up. Well, I jumped. I ended up coming to Melbourne for 6 years. And then at the 5-year mark, she's like, hey, do you want to go live overseas? And I'm like, yeah, but we just started this new company, which was called Petloo. I'm happy to talk about that a little bit later. And she's like, let's go live overseas. I'm like, all right, well, where would you like to go? If we could arrange for someone to come manage the business here and we can go overseas, where would you like to go? And she said, I asked you first. On the count of three, we'll both say what we think. She said Los Angeles. So she said LA. I said Los Angeles.
Oh, wow. You guys
so we ended up going to the US for 10 years, nearly 10 years, just shy of 10 years. And we had our 2 girls there. We took our dogs with us. And I had
what were you doing in LA? Because I know that you both started this, the pet business, which I loved because I had an Italian greyhound living in an apartment, and that product didn't exist back then. So, or maybe it didn't, I just wasn't aware. But so tell us
We just
about.
did a really shit job of marketing it. That's all.
Yeah.
It was there. You didn't know about it. That means we weren't doing our job properly.
Damn it. So yeah, tell us about that business, Petloo.
Yeah, so Petloo, talk about like a real like fall from grace. I'm studying podiatry. I'm going to become this doctor, and I'm going to go and work and build this massive fashion and functional shoe brand. And I'm going to take on Nike, and I'm going to do all these amazing things, to picking everything up that I got, less than $4,000 in my bank account, moved to Melbourne and started selling dog toilets. Real fall from grace. But the reality is, when I moved to Melbourne, bought Sim a dog. Her name was Subi. And Subi needed to go to the toilet at the most inconvenient of times. And I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. Sim would come over like, 2 or 3 nights a week and bring Subi with her. And it was just like hard. Like Melbourne in the winter is horrible. Nowhere near the surf and sand of Bondi. And Subi needed to go to the toilet at the most inconvenient of times. So out of need for the apartment, out of need for Subi, and out of need for pure sanity, we went on this journey. And the eureka moment was, Tobes, we just need a patch of backyard on our balcony.
Yep.
And Petloo was born. And I kid you not, that eureka moment was the light bulb that went on. And I literally like fast forwarded 10 years in my head of exactly what I needed to do. I knew where to go. I knew how to sell. I knew everything that I needed to do. I just needed to follow this path.
Yep.
And that path took me global. So Petloo was born. Sim's dad, Jack, lent me $20,000 to start the company.
Yeah.
In exchange, I gave him a third of the business.
Cool.
And then Sim and I had a third each. And the journey was not. The journey today is something that I look on fondly. Yeah. And I'm really, really proud and happy, and I learned so many things. But my God, it was brutal. It was. It tested everything that I had. There were times where I owed hundreds of thousands of dollars to the manufacturing plant, and I only had a few $1,000s in the bank account. But I had $1 million in receivables that wasn't due for 60 days. Like just fucking nightmares everywhere. And worse than that, it was really, really lonely, right? And so the journey itself, I was very isolated. I had this beautiful wife. We'd gotten married before we moved to LA. Beautiful wife, 2 dogs, living in Venice Beach. And she just didn't understand. She was happy to hear what I had to say and listen, but really just couldn't relate. So when I picked up the phone to my mom, my sisters, or anyone else in my network of circle, no one could relate, right? Entrepreneurship today is not what it was 20 years ago. Yeah. And so really, again, out of need for preservation of relationship, out of preservation for trying to compartmentalize my work and my life, right? Which became really intertwined when you're working out of your spare bedroom. Yep. I moved to a co-working space in Santa Monica, California, which was the old Google headquarters. Wow. Google had moved out to Venice Beach and left this amazing building, left it fully stocked and fully fitted out. And some guy came in, another entrepreneur came in and basically said, you want to take this private office? I'll sell you a 2-person private office. And then it was just at the epicenter of tech and entrepreneurship. We had Travis Kalanick, who started Uber. He had an office in the building. We had Evan Spiegel, who started Snap. He had an office in the building. This is before we know what Uber is today and what Snapchat is today, and so on and so forth. Yeah. But like these types of entrepreneurs are hanging out, and I've got a 2-person office there, and I'm lit up like nothing else. Yeah.
Oh, how awesome.
So today, fast forward to today, I serve as the CEO of Creative Cubes. I exited Petloo relatively successfully. And I say relatively successfully because I really do feel like I'm on first base. For most people, it would be a home run maybe 3 times over, but I'm not doing it for financials. I'm doing it for entrepreneurial creativity. And so I exited Petloo, came home and put all my money remortgaged my house, have done everything to fund Creative Cubes, which is a few locations at the moment which are open. We do private offices, co-working spaces, event spaces, meeting rooms, desks by the hour, all the way up to people locking in, large companies locking in for 2 to 3 years with us, and everything in between. And we have this mandate, which is we want to serve the people, all people, whether they've got $1 million in their bank account or they've got negative $1 million. If you're a good person and you want to do good in the world, come to Creative Cubes. And we act as a culture place, a place of culture for a lot of companies that are sort of coming off their tabletops, or consultants that are out on the road and they do what they do, but they don't really have that culture piece in their business. We're seeing a lot of consultants from all different fields come together here. Accountants, law firms. We have publicly listed companies, and Creative Cubes is all about the people first. And hopefully you can pay your bill. But if you can't, we also have corporate partners that will jump in and sponsor seats and help out people that just really want to ultimately jump off the cliff and sort of work it out for themselves. So that's where I'm at right now.
Wow, that's a pretty cool story. I have done some research on you, and I know that you're a basketball fan. Is it true that you interviewed Kobe Bryant when he was in Melbourne?
Partly true.
Partly true.
I got to hang out with Kobe for half an evening.
Yeah.
I didn't interview him.
Okay.
So that's where it's not true, but I got to spend some really good quality time with him. And bear in mind, I spent, just shy of 10 years in Los Angeles. So I never missed a Lakers game ever.
Yeah.
Whether it was in person, I'd go to the stadium, every other day or once a week. And if they were on the road, I'd make sure I'd be home from work to make sure that I watched the Lakers. So when I got to spend time with the late Kobe Bryant, I got to share some of my stuff with him, and from my lens as a super fan of the game, but just different things. So I was at his last game. I was there when he tore his Achilles. I was there when he won back-to-back championships, and just shared those moments with him. And then he shared his lens with me. It's a memory that I just hold on to really, really dearly.
Yeah, it seems like it's had a big impact on you. And I recently watched a video that you did about what you learnt from him, and I absolutely loved it, because through my research on millennials and leadership and mindset, I find that young people today are so much more in tune with the power of their mind and how important it is to be all in and have discipline. And I'm doing a research project at the moment, and I've nearly interviewed 100 millennial entrepreneurs, and they all have one thing in common, and that is that they get up really fucking early. Yep. I know you said Kobe Bryant gets up at, is it 3:30?
I think he was on the track at 3:30.
He was on the track at 3:30, so he obviously got up earlier than that. I interviewed a guy, one of my first podcast guests gets up at 3:30 in the morning. He's got 2 businesses, a young entrepreneur who wants to disrupt the banking industry, and he's just like a freak. He gets up at 3:30 every morning just so he can pack more into his day, and I just see this time and time again. So I saw in that video you get up at 4:45 or 4:44, is it? Why?
So so it's a short story, but it's a dear story. My dad passed when he was 44.
Okay.
So to get up at 4:45 or to get up at 5 is there's not much of a difference. And I set the alarm for 4:44 because of just to take 15, 16 minutes just to think about him and just kind of be in a place of mindfulness before I get out and just let rip on the day. Yeah. But that's a little bit outdated now, because I get up at 3:44. So that I'm actually at the gym by 5 o'clock. And I don't need to get up till 4, but the 3:44 is still that 44 minutes or 16 minutes before top of the hour that I really need to get out of bed. So yeah, I'm an early riser, and I'm also an early to bed guy. I want to try and maximize the day. You know, I'm not here to sort of be lazy and sleep, and I've got too many things that I want to try and achieve. So I can't do that from my pillow. I can think about it, and the rest is very important. It's very, very important to the whole equation. But getting out early. I'm an investor in a business called Orange Theory Fitness, which is about 1,500 franchise globally. I bought into the Melbourne group, which is, I think we have about 19 locations, but only 3 of them are currently open. And one of those locations is actually inside of Creative Cubes. So I get to go to Hawthorne in the morning. And I live in the south, like southeast. So I go to Hawthorne in the morning, work out, obviously not during COVID, but during COVID, I actually took all the equipment from the studio and put them in my house. So I got the treadmill, I got some dumbbells and some other equipment there to make sure that I stay dialed in.
Yep, love it. So tell us about Creative Cubes, because what a weird time that we live in for the commercial real estate market. I'd be really fascinated to hear about how COVID has impacted your business model. I mean, your offices are beautiful. You can tell that they've got a really good vibe. But how has COVID changed what you guys are doing, and do you think it's going to have an impact?
Yeah, so it absolutely has had an impact in more ways than one. Let's answer your first question. How has that changed? So who were we before and who are we now? Nothing's really changed in that department. What has changed is, the emphasis on masks, the emphasis on hygiene. I'm already a very hygienic person by nature. So the spaces and places you could already eat off the floor.
Yeah.
But we've implemented additional cleaning process and additional cleaning modules to make sure that it's completely COVID cleaned every night, and keep the community really safe. So nothing really has changed from a product offering perspective. There's been some impact. There's been some businesses that have fallen over during the crisis that may or may not have had not been a real business anyway. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but maybe this is sort of like cleaning of the deck and a new bar to be set. But the impact has actually been quite positive, believe it or not. So you talk about commercial real estate. When I think about commercial real estate, I think about people that have signed for 3, 5, 10 years in a commercial office space. Those guys are in. I mean, if their businesses aren't hurting at the moment, then they're in an okay place. But let's be honest, everyone's hurting. So that's a noose around people's necks in terms of their liabilities and their balance sheets. In terms of what we do, we offer Flex as a service or space as a service. So just like you pay G Suite for your inbox or Gmail for your inbox, or just like you pay for any other type of software that you would use to run and power your business, you pay Creative Cubes to power your office. And we have companies that have grown rapidly inside of us purely because of the uplift of the environment, the people that are around them, so on and so forth. But we've also seen a lot of larger companies now look at us going, holy shit, like, why the hell have I taken a 3-year lease, 5-year lease, 10-year lease, when I can just take a 10-person private office? I've got my privacy, I've got my team, I've now got additional culture resources, I've got the best experiences. One of our members said, I could never afford to put a gym, a cafe, an event space, a yoga studio in my office. But now my 10 staff can basically have the amenities of a large company like a Facebook or a Google or, a Snapchat for a couple $1,000s a month. And when I add 10 more people, I'll just take the office next door. And when those 10 people or that project sunsets, I'll switch it off and I'll come back to this. So we can expand and contract I just got an email this morning from a very large retail property organization going, we've just given up our office. Can we get memberships to come to Creative Cubes?
Yeah.
Which is, of course you can. So I think a lot of people are looking at office going, hey, my staff can work from home. Some of my staff can't, but do I need 500 seats on Collins Street in the city? Why don't I just get 10 memberships for this person that can't work from home? I'll shrink my 500 seats to 150 or 200 seats. So I still have space for the staff. I can still peacock a little bit as a brand and as an organization. But really my staff just really happy just working for wherever makes them comfortable. And so flex office, serviced office, co-working, I think we are, if not the best, one of the best operators when it comes to delivering this experience on the planet. And I say that with no arrogance. I say that with sheer grit and determination that if we're not there, then that's where we're heading. And we've delighted thousands of companies that use our spaces on a daily basis. You can come to Creative Cubes for a day and just use the meeting rooms. You can come to Creative Cubes for a month. You can sign up for 12 months. And we've seen a lot of companies also use us for overflow space as times have grown. They'll keep corporate HQ, but they want to break out their staff to operate on a different place if they're running a specific project. We serve Uber, we've got KFC, we've got some really global brands that I can't really kind of name drop because of confidentiality. But if you came to the property, you would see their signage up all over the place. We've got publicly listed companies, we've got international organizations, all the way down to some guy that once upon a time decided that he wanted to create videos for people and companies. And he rolled up in here with his skateboard and his backpack and a little camera. And 3 years later, he's employing 5 staff and, kicking amazing goals. And it's his birthday today. So everything in between, the full spectrum, we help expand and contract and provide a really uplifting moment for not only the organization, but the people that work. We're people focusedness. So
I love it. I think it's definitely the way of the future. And I'm one of those businesses that just signed a 5-year lease 4 years before this happened. So
right.
I've a beautiful Victorian townhouse in Abbotsford that has this amazing meeting room because I've got a HR consulting business. So we do a lot of training and events, which we're not doing any of now. And every day I walk into the office, I'm like, fuck, this is a big waste of money. How much longer am I going to do this for? Like we've already talked about, utilizing something like your space because everyone's working from home and my business is functioning better than ever. We don't need a bricks and mortar space anymore. And I think that COVID has really brought that home for a lot of businesses. So what's the future look like for Creative Cubes? Where do you want to take it? It sounds like you've got some big plans. Do you want to go global?
Look, I want to serve people, right? And I want to serve people to the best of our ability. If that means that we're in a position where we can scale to a global level, then we'll absolutely do that. The reality is I'm not driving scale for the sake of scale. I'm driving scale for the sake of impact. And if we can have a positive impact and I can roll out 10 buildings and then the 11th building, the quality starts to sort of dilute a little bit or dribble down, and we're just going to stop, right? We're not trying to grow for any other reason other than the positive impact that we have on the communities that we work from today. South Melbourne, Richmond, Hawthorn. We're soon coming to Collingwood, so not far from you in Abbotsford. We have a couple of other agreements in the pipe for Victoria and New South Wales, but all those can come to an absolute halt if we are not delivering the impact that we set out to achieve. In terms of how far do you want to take it? We're limitless in terms of how far we can go. But again, we're about quality. And I don't want to be sort of like a 7-Eleven. Not that there's anything wrong with that brand. I mean, it's on every corner, but at the same time, it's, we're not a convenience place. We're a place of of fostering culture and uplifting and inspiration. And I don't want anyone to ever walk into a Creative Cubes location and just go, this is not what it used to be. Yeah, because we're really, really strong on that. So, yeah, that's sort of like where we're at.
Amazing. I just want to ask you some questions about leadership, because I'm sure that you employ people with all of the locations that you have. How have you managed your people in the times of COVID, and what have you learned about leadership in these times? Because it's pretty full on. It's pretty stressful to be a business owner right now. Like, being an entrepreneur is stressful and lonely enough. But what has this situation taught you?
Yeah, I think communication is one of the biggest things, right? So when it comes to people and culture, although I'm the CEO of Creative Cubes, I actually have someone that sits in that seat, Sade Mazeo, who joined us from Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas to lead us in people and culture, is the CEO in that division. And so really I'm taking advice from her. I'm happy to be the guy that spearheads this whole thing. I'm happy to be the guy that's there talking to the, talking on the media and sort of spearheading who we are and what we do. And I am a real leader. But when it comes to leadership, I don't hire great people to tell them what to do. I hire great people to tell me what to do. And Sade helps me in a big way in people and culture. Also the ops team and the commercial team and the marketing team and the social, like everyone plays a pivotal role. And for me, transparency and constant communication, even if it's nothing. We run a program called Inside the Cube, which we have 20 odd staff now on our way and growing. But we have 20 odd staff and some of them I don't get to see because I'm kind of caught up in the throes of the day, So I don't want them to ever hear something third person. I want to be able to, so we run this thing called Inside the Cube. Historically, it was the whole company would get together at a property in one of our event spaces. And we have an events team that can spin out these incredible events for people where all they got to do is plug in, bring the device and everything is taken care of. And the inside is basically just sharing, hey, where we're at. We share financials. We set our targets and our goals. We talk about stuff we want to do together. We talk about stories from the community. There's a whole bunch of things. That's now moved to a Google Hangout, which has been fantastic, purely so they can constantly hear from me. And there's been a lot of insides that really have run 15, 20 minutes where there's nothing happening. Guys, I woke up this morning, I did this, this, and this. I plan to do that. Who's got a funny story? The craziest thing just happened. There's nothing new going on because we're kind of sitting idle a little bit. But it's just that constant communication there that gives the staff and the team, the wider team, a voice and a way to speak and have direct communication. So I think we're doing a really good job. I think it's been received exceptionally well. But at the end of the day, I have incredibly talented people in all departments of the company that ultimately become the CEO when it comes to that specific thing, whether that's culture or operations or commercial. I'm not there telling them what to do. They're telling me, this is what needs to happen, and so getting my sign off, not from a control perspective, but from a sounding board perspective. And I think it's put us in a really good spot.
Yeah, I would agree. It's so important to have the right people and to trust them to do their jobs. And I think that COVID has really brought to the forefront how important communication really is. And my philosophy is there's no such thing as too much communication. People want certainty and they want to know what's going on. And if there's question marks or things are foggy, then people get scared and worried and they want to feel safe. So my next question is around entrepreneurship. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
2 ears, 1 mouth. 2
ears, 1 mouth.
Listen twice as much as you speak.
Yep.
That's the best piece of advice.
Yep. Simon Sinek has a great saying. He says, be the last to speak.
Yeah.
Which is
Simon and I actually share a birthday.
Do you?
We do. October 9.
There we go. So what was the birthday?
So, October 9.
October 9th. So what star sign are you?
Libra.
Libra. There we go. I am in the podcast after this, which I've got one at 11 o'clock. I'm actually speaking to a medium. So
Super cool.
I know. So I'm very excited about that. So
Yeah.
I guess one last question, looking back over your journey as an entrepreneur, what would be the thing that you're most proud of?
I think the one thing that I can hang my hat on every night before I put my head on the pillow is I always operate with honor and integrity.
Yeah.
I'm a super passionate guy. I can be really into certain things, like obsessively into certain things, but I always execute with honor and integrity. I'll fight to the death when it comes to doing the right thing. So if I feel like someone's done the wrong thing or someone's trying to shaft a team member or me or whoever, I'll fight to the death just out of principle. I think in the later years, I turned 40 this year. I've sort of not eased up on that, but like I had a great example. I looked at a house over the weekend with my wife, and the purchasing experience was just horrible. We were totally in love with the house, but we got really turned off. And by the way, we weren't looking, but just, we somehow stumbled into this situation. I got really turned off by the buying experience. And so I made an offer, and the agent came back to me. I increased my offer. I said, that's it. I'm not going to make another dollar. I'm not making any further offers on this. This is where I stand. And he called me the next day to say, hey, they're not quite there. Can you come up a bit? And I said, mate, I'm disciplined. In fact, not only am I disciplined, the experience has been so bad, it's not for me to teach you any lessons. I'm out. I'm out. And it was just a really bad experience. The old Tobi, or should I say the younger, less gray haired in the beard kind of Tobi, would have fought this person to the death out of principle. But I actually said to the agent, I said, you guys have been great. The vendor is unrealistic. I'm not going to try and teach them a lesson and be defiant. I'm now removing my offer from the table. I'm out. And so I don't know if I really answered your question, but my point is that I think sometimes it's really important to understand when to hold them and when to fold them. And I know that it's nothing new, but I think that does come with maturity, because I can tell you maybe even like 12, 24 months ago, I would have been hot about the offer and not disciplined and gone up the hill to meet them. And the whole thing was wrong. It needed to be wrong and it needed to stay wrong. And it wasn't for me to teach a lesson. It was for me to just walk away because I just can't help.
Yep, it's about picking your battles and working in HR and working with leaders. That's something that you have to do all of the time, because it's not worth fighting to the death on every single issue. It's exhausting. I would definitely agree with that.
But it doesn't actually, putting that example to one side, I spoke to my chairman, 3 nights ago. And he's like, mate, how are you going? What's happening? This environment is brutal. He's a major investor in a lot of really large companies. And I said to him, Jay, anything that doesn't serve our mission and our vision, I don't have time for. It's really that simple. I don't mean to be a dick when I say that. There's zero arrogance. But unless this is going to directly improve or compound where we're going as an organization, ain't nobody got time for that. I'm sure you've heard that meme. No, I really and truly, it's and so there's emails that flow into my inbox. There's stuff that I've grown my LinkedIn from a couple hundred to in excess of 4,000. The inbox direct emails that I get from people, hey, I want to help you with this. I want to do that. Like, thank you, appreciate where you're at, but really this is kind of like ground noise to where we're taking the company. Yep. So I'm non-responsive, not because for any other reason. I've got to stay dialed in.
Yeah, that's it. It's so important to stay focused on the things that are moving forward. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs face that challenge where entrepreneurship and being a CEO don't normally go hand in hand, because being entrepreneurial is about being creative and about taking the risks and having this kind of appetite for uncertainty and all these kinds of things. And then a lot of the entrepreneurs I speak to, when they grow their business or scale their business, they get to the point where they're like, oh my God, now I have to manage people. Now I've got to like be a finance director, and you've got all these different hats, and it kills their entrepreneurial spirit.
It takes you away from why you got into the game in the first place. Yeah.
Correct. So
and I see that all the time. How do I?
Yeah. How have you dealt with that? Because it seems like you're managing it pretty well, but it sounds like your first business, the pet loo, did that teach you some things about that?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think this venture, I've got a few partners involved in this venture purely because I just didn't want to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take the risks. I'm happy to get kicked in the nuts all day, every day. I've got this massive pain threshold that I'm just numb to situations and opportunities, or circumstances, not opportunities. And so it's great to have equally strong leaders in the organization that I admire and respect. And really, as the CEO, at sort of like at the top of the org chart, we flip our org chart upside down. I feel like I'm at the bottom of the org chart.
Yeah.
And I look up to all these people, and I'm like, how can I help you elevate? And how can I help you elevate, as opposed to looking down, but org chart kind of lens wise. And so how do I manage it? It goes back to what I said earlier, Emily, which is I hire great people to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't a dictatorship, and we're going to fuck up. We're going to burn some money. We're going to do some shit that doesn't quite work. So long as the ball is going forward, progress over perfection, we're still winning. Yeah. And now we're in a position where we're trying to sort of the perfection train. So progress over perfection is the mantra that we operate from. Just get it done. It doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to be right. But now we have this progress, and now we have this perfection train, which is just total bullshit anyway. But because perfection is bullshit. But we have this perfection train, which is now coming, a couple of years behind, sort of all right, we don't really need to spend that. We're going to cut back on that. We're going to look at that. We're going to shift our stuff this way. We're going to, it started they're starting to finesse the backside now, while I'm just plowing as hard and as fast as I can on the front end. And sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. And the reality is you only have to be right once to make up for all those losses. And I don't say that recklessly, because we're very conscious of unit economics and cash on hand and, commitments and so on and so forth. But really, you got to get out there. You should. I've been involved in businesses where, metaphorically speaking, they've built the Ferrari to go to the grocery store. A complete waste of money, a complete waste of time, a complete waste of perfection, because the tool is no good for the use. Right. And so it's just critically important. Just get out. And by the way, by the time you've taken to build your beautiful Ferrari that is just crafted so nicely, the market's gone.
Correct.
So while you came up with the idea in the moment and took your sweet ass time trying to get the product out and then held back because it wasn't quite right, the reality is companies that go out to market are really only 50% baked anyway, because it's that market influence that then kind of shapes the future. So just get out, get your minimum viable product into market, get your customer feedback, 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen, execute, lower your ego, and just go forward. And I think that it's not pretty, it's not fun, it's uncomfortable, but that's how you fucking live. That's how you survive. That's how COVID hits and you're able to bunker down and sort of take cover, and sort of ride the storm out. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we're on beautiful sunny days and everything's not back, because it doesn't need to come back. But the lessons that people have grown, they've become richer in their mind. They've become richer in their process. They've become more robust in the way in which they execute. Whereas if you're kind of taking cover, and poor me, COVID, I've got so many people that I know, they're sooks. They've been whinging about this COVID situation like it's only happening to them. Fucking grow some and let's play ball. So
I love it.
I don't know. It might be a bit rough, but like sugar free. Get at it.
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. It's been really interesting listening to your story. There's some gold nuggets in there for all those people who are struggling right now, who are on their own entrepreneurial journey. So, Tobi, if people want to find out more about you and Creative Cubes, how can they do that?
Yeah, so you can do a very simple Google search for my name and find me either on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm not really on Instagram publicly or Facebook publicly. In fact, I haven't been on Facebook for years, but I go on the gram with my wife and kids, so don't find me there. But on Twitter, I'm quite active, and LinkedIn, I'm very active. And as for Creative Cubes, it's creativecubes.co. And if that's too much to remember, shared office space in your local neighborhood, we should come up pretty strong in the Google searches. And please feel free to reach out. Any way that we can help. My team and I are poised and ready to support everyone and anyone at all different sizes of businesses.
I love it. Thank you so much. Creative Cubes is an amazing space. I can vouch for that. I've had a look at all of the spaces online. I'm definitely going to have to come and look at the Collingwood one because I think that my Victorian house is a bit empty and useless right now. But thank you once again for generously giving us your time. I've loved speaking to you.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you.